A little spooky today. You got some dark stuff going on. I'm gonna try this. Looks like I can be seen well enough. Anyway, shadows. It doesn't mean that this is a dark video or anything today. I think it'll be okay. I do want to start off talking uh, a little bit about what's going on. The thing is that the last and so there's been like snow in Portland, and a lot of you folks who are not from Portland, you don't just like, oh yeah, you people in Portland, you just don't get it. I mean, you don't have any real snow. No, we don't have any real snow. That's kind of the point, because we've got people who are out there, and they don't actually have any real survival skills to survival gear or skills to that was the skills and the gear together as gills. Survival gills is skills and gear. You know that, right? Anyway, they don't really. We're not really prepped for snow because it doesn't happen every year. It happens every couple of years, maybe once every 3 years, something like that. So when the snow comes, yeah, it hits us pretty hard, and we seem a little panicky or whatever. And that's simply because we're not used to it. For years, Portland had one snow plow, and it would just take forever for anybody to get out and safely drive the roads because nobody had chains, nobody has anything to prep for it. And when you're out on the street, then it's even more so. There's no infrastructure, not enough infrastructure for people to get in. And when people, and then if people do get in, then they've got when people do get in, then they are a lot of times their stuff is lost or something happens, and there's a lot of folks who don't get in, don't either because it's too far or because they're not able to access transportation or something like that. And then there's some people who just die in the cold because they're not ready for it because we're just not used to it in Portland. Anyway, this is just the tail end of the stuff that I've been dealing with for a long time, trying to get people shelter and all that. And so I went up to Portland. I'm in Eugene now, but earlier in the week I was up in Portland trying to help set things up so that way people didn't die this year. We did already have a death, but I think that for the most part, the infrastructure is doing well enough that people are more being taken care of than what used to happen. And this is just what I've been doing. I've been doing it for a long time uh, and I've been talking about this lately about how I got it meant so immersed in trying to save people's lives that I didn't actually think that much about myself or how I could do that. I was just like all focused 100% of the time, 60 to 80 hours a week, every week on helping other people and helping other people survive. And I don't really regret that, but by the end of my time of doing that for more than 20 years or whatever, I'm only doing it part of the time now. Very short part of the time compared to what I used to. I mean, I would wake up every morning for the last couple of years of me doing it that full extent, and I would just go and I would wake up and I'd just lay in bed for a moment and just say, maybe today is the day that I would have a stroke and I don't have to worry about this. And I would just think that every day. Just I'd be ready to just end it all and basically praying to God, would you just take this away from me? Because I really don't want to have to keep doing this. I'm just too exhausted. I can't keep this up. I'm too depressed. I can't function. I didn't think of suicide, but I did pray to God and asked Him to kill me. And that went on for a while. And sometimes the preacher has to preach to himself or herself. You just have to say something that's mostly going to apply to you, whether it applies to other people or not. And this is one of those teachings that I'm mostly talking to myself. So for me, I'm a student of the Bible, but I'm also a student of the saints. And so early on, I was all about the saints. I love the saints. I love these people who the Orthodox Church says are spiritual athletes. They're people who are going out doing extreme acts, Olympian type acts for spirituality. And some of these people are prayers, and some of them are miracle workers. But the ones that I loved are the ones who are the compassion workers, the people who would sacrifice themselves for the poor, people like St. Francis, who would not allow himself to be warm as long as another person didn't have a coat, like Peter Waldo, who gave, he was a wealthy man who gave everything he had to the poor and then lived with them for the rest of his life. People like St. Damien, who helped people in a leper colony, helped all the lepers there until he ended up with leprosy himself and died from it. These are the people who I honored. These are the people who I mostly respected. And so when I went in to do homeless ministry, I was going to be like that. I am giving 110%. Everything that I've got is toward them. I moved people in my house, which was great, actually. That was one of the best things that we did. We had services. I helped people organize camps. I helped people do whatever it was that I could to help people survive and all of that. Of course, it didn't turn out so well for me. A lot of people got some help, but for me, I was really having a hard time going day to day. And that's actually the story of Elijah as well. Elijah was a guy in the Old Testament in First Kings primarily. He's the guy who said to the king that there'd be no rain for 3 years. He's the guy who confronted the priests of Baal in Israel. He confronted kings. He did all kinds of miracles. He had to run away from persecution. And at the end of years of this work, he was just exhausted. And he went to God and he said, God, I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. Would you kill me? Just kill me so that way we can have this done. And God says, well, okay, yeah, kind of. And God said, well, I want you to do 3 more things. Do these 3 things, these small little teeny things. And then I'll take care of you. And he did. After Elijah took care of those 3 things, God sent a chariot from heaven to come down, pick him up, and take him up. He says, okay, you're done. Not everybody gets that kind of special treatment, you know. Anyway, the thing is that what I realized after I had to stop everything and I had to pull myself out, is like I'm the little tooth and I'm trying to pull myself out of this work. That the thing is that we know that the command, love your neighbor as yourself, implies that you need to actually have a certain amount of respect and help for yourself, so that way you love your neighbor to that degree. But it also, but the thing is that I think it also implies something else, that actually all commands in Scripture are not only for those who are for those whom we are loving, other people, but they're also for ourselves. I think that every single one has to do with a community life. So for instance, when we say, all right, we're not going to murder other people, that's a bad thing, then we also are saying, yeah, I'm not, I also don't want to be murdered. And I don't want to be murdered by somebody else, because I'm a part of this community, and me not murdering other people is also an agreement that I myself am not going to be murdered. The same thing with, like, do not commit adultery. All right, I'm not going to, I'm going to have this command. My spouse is not going to commit adultery. Well, I'm not going to commit adultery either. And the fact is that if I did commit adultery, it comes back on me because it harms my relationship with my spouse, and it's going to hurt me because the damage to my relationship is damage to me. So, and the same thing even with Jesus' command to love your enemy. If I hate my enemy, and I've got all of this bitterness that is consuming from the inside out, who's actually being harmed? Well, I'm being harmed. To love my enemy is actually an agreement that I don't want to be harmed. you know? And so the thing is that God's commands to love others or to be in a community of peace and of justice is basically an agreement that I'm going to be taking care of myself too. That it's not just for other people, it's also for me. If I said, well, I'm going to make sure that all of you are taken care of, but I myself am going to be sacrificed, I am putting myself on a pedestal above everybody else. I am God who's going to sacrifice myself, but all of you, I'm just doing it for you. No, it's supposed to be peace and justice for everyone. It's supposed to be shalom for everyone, not just certain people, and then other people have to sacrifice. It's supposed to be for everyone. We are God's creation. We're in the image of God. If we harm another, we are harming God because that other person is in the image of God. Well, you know what? If we harm ourselves, if we allow ourselves to be broken down, then we're actually harming God as well, because we also are made in the image of God. We are made to love, and we love, and we give love, and we sacrifice for love sometimes, but it also means that we are objects of love. And some people are saying, well, I'm not an object of love. Well, almost certainly you are. I suppose there's some people in the foothills of nowhere, and maybe maybe they're not as much as loved. But the fact is that, once again, like I talked about before, we all have mirror neurons. We all have a reflection. We all are reflected in somebody else's mind. And when a person has us in their minds, it means that we're a part of their community. That means that they have a certain amount of care. And if they have us reflected in their minds, that means that they that if they see us doing well, then they feel themselves as being a part of that. If we are harming ourselves, if we are hurting and all that, then they are a part of that too. Now, we all get hurt sometimes. We all have damage that ends up happening to us. But that doesn't mean that we have damage that. But if we do it to ourselves, if we do it about ourselves, then that ends up being a problem. That ends up meaning that we are causing them that suffering. We are, if we are putting ourselves in a place where we end up floating down and destroying ourselves, then we are inflicting that upon others as well. That's what I meant to say. Okay. And besides, for me, if I end up not caring for myself, then I stand out as a hypocrite, because I spend a lot of time trying to tell people to take care of themselves. Well, if I tell them to take care of themselves and I don't do it myself, well, then I'm a hypocrite. See? All right. I'm going to just get to the next part here. It is interesting, actually, that I'm pretty tired. That's how come I'm kind of slow on the draw here. Anyway, it's interesting that you do all these studies that certain people have done. You read these studies about how it is that people are happy. How is it that we obtain happiness? And so they've done all of these different things. And it's interesting that science has said that there are certain disciplines that make us happy. In other words, practices that we can do that will keep us happy people. And a lot of these practices are things that actually Scripture encourages us to do, either by command or by counsel. And so I'm going to share a few of them here, so we can get an idea of what it is that both science and Scripture agree upon, that we should all be participating in, that actually helps us. So number one, rest. We need to rest. In the Bible, it puts it to remember the Sabbath, and you remember the Sabbath and keep it holy by not working, by taking a break, by stopping your regular routine. So we remember the Sabbath and we take a break. God made us to be active. Yes, but he also made us to rest. And so this is something that we just need to do. The Sabbath is not actually per se a command. The Sabbath is an opportunity for healing, an opportunity for getting well. Jesus said that it is that Sabbath was not made for that man was not made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath was made for man. That it is there for our well-being. And so that means it's not just a rule that we need to follow. It is a discipline that we participate in 1 day off a week in order to be healthy and to remain happy. That's a basic thing we need to do. Another thing that science says is good for us is contentment. In Isaiah, it says, "You keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you," to have perfect peace within ourselves. Now, contentment, when science talked about contentment, they're a little bit more specific. What they said is that it's the idea of that if we are in a place where we're in trouble, where we're suffering, where we're having a terrible time, then part of what we need to do is think about not only the bad consequences of that suffering, but we also need to think of potential good consequences. Yes, we may be in trouble, or we may be suffering, but through that we could think, well, I'll be in better place to help somebody else who has this kind of thing happen to them. These kinds of things. In other words, we don't want to just think about the negative side, but also things that are potentially positive characteristics. Another thing that the Bible and science agrees upon, that if we're going to take care of ourselves, we need to be in community. Now, we need time alone. We need some space because people are stressful. And so we definitely need some space. And Jesus took that space. The first thing he did when he got up every morning is he ran away to get some time away from people. But science also says that people who are happy also make a point of remaining in community. They don't isolate. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and he was isolating. He said, "Well, I want to do this and I want to do this, but I just can't deal with people right now." I said, "Really? Well, about how long have you been in this place?" "Oh, for 3 months." 3 months and away from people. And that was really hard. So I did my best to convince him, hey, why don't you go out and talk to people? Why don't you hang out with some people and all that? It'll be good for you. Anyway, and so this is the thing, is that we need to be a part of community. We need to be a regular part of community. It doesn't mean we need to do that all the time, but we do need to be a part of connecting with other people. It has been said that if we remain isolated, then that can develop into certain traits that are usually related to schizophrenia. So we don't want to relate that. A couple more things that I just want to mention. First of all, speaking out gratitude. In Scripture, it says, "In everything give thanks." Science says that if we actually verbalize a thank you or a measure of gratitude when something really good happens, it makes us better people. It makes us happier people. Just to keep saying thank you. We say thank you to people when they do something nice, but also, like, if we see a great sunset or something amazing, or we're in nature and we're feeling really peaceful, let's express our gratitude. Express our gratitude to God, to the universe, whatever you want to think. But the thing is that in saying that, then we are happier. And we can be more content. It's a discipline that helps us take care of ourselves. And finally, another thing that Scripture very much says, and science agrees, which is that if you're doing service for others, helping people in need, you are a happier person. It actually builds up all sorts of really nice hormones, feel-good hormones, if we are helping other folks. And we can really just, it's kind of like getting a little bit of a high or a little bit of a buzz just by helping somebody else in need. You can help somebody out on the street or help an elderly person, whatever. It just makes you feel good. It might be giving $1, or it might be serving in a soup kitchen, or it might be doing something more elaborate. Whatever the case, showing mercy, doing volunteer work, that really boosts your happiness. That happens to all of us. The thing is that the way that we want to think about it is that it's like we have a balance. Let's get close together. There we go. It's like we have a balance in our lives, and we can be on the scale. And so on one side, we can have loving others or caring for others. On the other side, we have caring or loving ourselves. And let's say that, and for me, for a period of time, I was really good on the taking care of other people, but then and so I would put more pebbles on that side, but the other side ended up being too light, and the whole shebang could just collapse. The thing is that we need to recognize we need to have a balance between taking care of ourselves and taking care of others. If we have too much on the taking care of others, that could be a problem. If we have too much taking care of ourselves and not enough in taking care of others, then that can also upset the whole thing. We need to reflect on ourselves, and we just need on our lives and say, well, where am I at? How am I balanced? Am I balanced more on the taking care of others or more on taking care of myself? How do I have a balance of that in my life? And that's just something that we need to reflect on every once in a while. And we may have a great balance right now, but maybe next year it's going to be a different thing, a different story. We need to really consider that on occasion and think about, well, how do I have a better balance? Do I need to be doing more for other people? Do I need to be doing more for myself? How do I reach a balance in my life? And once again, I'm mostly saying this to me, but if anybody else gets something out of that today, that's great. All right, hang in there. May the Lord bless you and keep you and give you peace.